Yes.
How are you?
Yep, I'm in your way.
Yep.
Okay, it'll start in 9 seconds. 8 seconds. 7. 6.
Close enough.
Yeah.
I now call the Norton City Regular Council meeting to order, Monday, July 9th, 2018, time 7 p.m. Would you please rise for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Courant?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here.
Mr. Pilat?
Here. Under Committee of the Whole, reports from standing committees, I'd like to acknowledge Council's receipt of the June 2018 budget reports. I'd also like to make a motion to add an agreement with Engineering Associates for the Cleveland-Massillon Road water line, not to exceed $75,000. And because of the time sensitivity, and this is our last meeting before break, I would be looking to waive second and third on that as well tonight. Just letting you know.
I'll second.
Motion second to add Ordinance 77, 2018 to tonight's agenda. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
No.
Ms. Whipke?
No.
And also, I'd like to make a motion to add Ordinance 79, 2018, and that's authorizing the transfers from the general fund to the road program and to, that one's for 600,000. And then there's 1,200 and some, give me a second here. $1,260 going to the historical fund.
I'll second.
Motion second to authorize the transfers and add Ordinance 79, 2018 to tonight's agenda. Any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes.
what is it for the historical fund?
$1,260.
What's the reasoning?
It's in a cash negative position by $1,260. We just need to bring it into a positive cash flow.
Why? I know why we need to bring it into positive. I want to know why they're,
I'm guessing that there were bills that took it over by that much.
oh, so we don't really know why they want.
Well, it would be bills, expenses.
Isn't this the second time we've done that?
Mr. Messner?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, it's not, the budget's not being increased for historical house, right? It's just a issue of having cash funds.
Correct.
Cash
Oh, okay.
available within the fund. So it's within the budgeted amount. It just needs to have cash to pay the bills.
Okay,
And that's the same reason for the road situation as well.
thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Any other reports from standing committees? All right. Moving on, communications from the public. Michael Meaden, please give your name and phone number to the stenographer, and
And
you have 5
address.
minutes. Or name and address,
Address.
yeah. Name and name.
Michael Meaden, 3177 Cleveland, Masson, and the number's 328-8598. I just wanted everybody to know I stopped by the fire station today to take care of the paperwork for the upcoming fireworks show for the 200th, for our bicentennial. Everything is looking great. Don't really need any updates. I'm real happy with the way it's coming together. However, since I've been back from my 4th of July shows, from a couple of different sources and a couple of different municipalities, I have heard that Ohio is going to be changing the law next year, and I'm sure you'll be thrilled about this. Fireworks will be legal for consumers to shoot in their backyard. That's the word I got from the State House, that is going to pass. They're going to be putting it on municipalities to make up their own laws. So when I heard that, I thought, you know what, this would be a great opportunity, and if anybody here is open, I would be more than happy to sit in with a meeting, and I'm sure Justin would probably want to sit in on this too, to make sure that the cities don't end up with any liability. But I think it would be a great idea to have something for Norton, that the fire department would do a very quick inspection and issue a certificate, giving the municipality a chance to look at the site and say, hey, listen, this is not big enough to do what you want to do. Not having it a money-making thing, but making it a safety thing. I got a whole new perspective this year. Normally, I'm out of town for the 4th of July doing fairly large shows, and this year, just the way the schedule went, I was out west until the 2nd, and I flew home the evening of the 2nd to grab 4 hours of sleep, and then I had to go to Dayton to do their show. And I say 4 hours of sleep, all I heard was fireworks all night long. And I thought, boy, I love fireworks, but I'm not really digging it right now because I can't get to sleep. It's stuff like that that I think we could put in and along with a certificate saying, yes, you can do it on your property, a timeline, you got to be done by 11 o'clock or 11:30. A safety thing, you can only go so big. And consumer fireworks some of the stuff's getting pretty serious now. And I think it'd just be a good thing to be proactive when this law does change, that Norton will be ready for it and hopefully keep citizens safe, because I know how this went in other states. The first year, everybody goes nuts and people get hurt. So I would be more than happy to volunteer my time to anybody who wants to get together at any point. And I've got a lot of experience in this stuff, so I think we can make it a reasonable set of rules that the public will like and the city will, it'll be good for everybody.
Question for you. When you say make legal, are we talking all sizes or up to a certain level, then you need a license?
Well, no, consumer fireworks, and it used to be called Class C, now it's 1.4. It's a designate they put on it for shipping. So 1.4 fireworks are the only thing that people are still going to be able to buy, which are consumer. However, consumer fireworks over the past 10 years have gotten bigger. There's small novelty items all the way up to a reloadable shell. They're no bigger than 1 7/8, but they're still relatively powerful. And you have 500-gram repeaters that are, they pack a fairly good punch. It's nothing like what we shoot, but it's still enough to start your house on fire. And I mean, common sense. If you live next to the gas station, you probably shouldn't get a certificate to be shooting fireworks off. Same thing with, if you're packed close, your neighbors are too close, you don't have a big enough backyard, then keep it to novelty items. There's just a lot of common sense things and frankly, the ORC, with the rules they have for us, it's 2 inches thick and it contradicts itself everywhere, and you can tell it was written by people who had never been around fireworks before. So I think it's a good idea to get someone who's experienced to know and make it doable for the backyard person. If they really want, they're going to do it anyway. And I'm sure the police department knows the stuff's going off all the time anyway. So at least let's try to kind of inject some safety into the thing and make it better for everybody.
Well, I can tell you, after the last week, I thought the law had already changed because, I mean, we didn't have to go anywhere for fireworks. They were all over our neighborhood.
And you'd be shocked, even in the cities. When I was in Las Cruces this year, you're talking a decent-sized city, and there was stuff going off. I know it wasn't consumer fireworks. And it goes up right to the point where we start our show. Now, this is a $50,000 show that's 20 minutes long, and I'm talking about the second it ends, everything around you starts right back up. So people are going to do it anyway.
Yeah. And
I'm just saying that, if you're going to have some rules, let's make it, make some sense. You have my number now.
Thanks, Mr. Meaden. Next, Becky Woodruff.
Becky Woodruff. I live at 3663 Durham Drive in Norton, and I'm just presenting additional information regarding the proposed housing development on Clark Mill Road. I'll first thank the council members for truly listening to these concerns and not taking the attitude that nothing can be done regarding this proposed development. I especially thank Ms. Whipke and Mr. McGlone for their supportive comments at the last meeting. We moved to our Durham home in May 1998. As of 2008, the wooded land behind our property line was zoned agricultural. Trees were harvested for lumber and mulch, although the project was abandoned near the natural gas well. The soil there was so soft due to an underground spring that heavy equipment became stuck in the mud. There is a need to maintain vegetation in this area to stay ahead of the wet conditions. If the green spaces are eliminated by this housing development, Durham and other residents would also see an increase in the noise from the Barberton Speedway. At the last meeting, Mr. Gaynor stated that the importance of tax dollars for Norton that would come from this development. Perhaps there's a better way to achieve that goal than to continue building houses. Perhaps the Speedway should be asked to pay more taxes. The average weekend racetrack offers several division races with 25 laps each. Barberton Speedway's event on June 29 involved opening the pits at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, hot laps at 3, gates opening at 4:30, and racing at 6:30. There were 4 divisions of race cars with 50 lap features, and a huge fireworks show followed. This was one of 23 events that have been scheduled this season. The decibel level for conversational speech is 60. Damage begins at 85. According to the Texas Health Resources website, these levels can exceed 130 for racetrack drivers, and for spectators, 96 is average. They choose to be there, and they enjoy the vibration and the noise. It's their excitement. Many drivers and pit crew have seriously impaired hearing, even when using earplugs. The same goes for construction and factory workers and those attending rock concerts and some sporting events. People living near a racetrack are forced to live with it and suffer health consequences. Even their pets get nervous. Saturday evening, I listened to the Speedway from my home, and I decided to get in the car. And I drove over to the entrance and just sat there for a moment. I can't imagine trying to put kids to bed. This was 9:30. I can't imagine trying to put kids to bed at that hour with that kind of racket going on. It was horrible. And they were still racing by 10:15. They had just started another one. In my opinion, to intentionally build homes where you know its residents could sustain permanent hearing damage is cruel and wrong. Residents would need to wear earplugs at home during a race or spend a large part of the day elsewhere for nearly half of the weekends each year. Is the developer going to build these homes with soundproof walls? Will potential buyers not only be alerted to the Speedway's location, but also to the risk of having permanent hearing damage by living there? Would they be asked to sign a waiver releasing all responsibility for such future damage? Who would want to sacrifice their family's health by living there? I ask that you as councilmen properly address the consequences if this development is built. Many of us, most including me, once smoked cigarettes. Cars were not equipped with seat belts, and we let our kids ride their bikes in the streets without wearing a helmet. We know better now. Yes, Mr. Gaynor, this is America, and we are free to smoke, not wear a seat belt, or ride without a helmet at our own risk if we want. The consequences are well known and of our own doing. We don't have the right to force others to do so. It's clear the Speedway is here to stay. In my opinion, to knowingly sacrifice the hearing of 108 families by building this development for its tax dollars is callous greed. There must be a better way. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey Kendrick? Please give your name and address to the stenographer.
Corey Kendrick, 1867 West Market Street, Akron, Ohio. I'm the Director of Population Health here representing Summit County Public Health. And I just want to briefly talk about the tobacco legislation that's on the agenda tonight. I just want to thank all the members of council for bringing this important piece of legislation up and having a debate about it. And appreciate you taking a look at this important issue. Just want to say a few more things tonight about it before you make your consideration on the third reading. Just that, again, this is an evidence-based approach and policy that has been proven in other parts of the country to reduce youth smoking by as much as half. And so what we're really trying to do is stop middle schoolers and high schoolers from ever starting. And we know this works. We've seen it work in other parts of the country, and it can work here in Summit County and Norton. If students never start smoking, they're 95% less likely to ever start if they can make it to 21 years of age. So that is why the number is 21. It's scientifically proven. It's not just to align with drinking or anything else. There's actually some scientific basis in this number. And smoking is still the number one cause of preventable premature death. One other thing of note, we had a public meeting on this. We invited all of the retailers affected by the new law in Akron, in Twinsburg. About 250 letters went out to retailers, and not one retailer showed up. So this is an issue that doesn't seem to be an issue. It's going across the country, and retailers are not providing us any feedback, any negative feedback on this as well. So I wanted to provide that input and aspect, as well as we've received no negative citizen complaints. So again, I really want to thank everyone for considering this, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Corey? Consideration of minutes, any corrections, additions, or alterations to the minutes of June 25th, 2018? Hearing none, those will be accepted as submitted. Reports from officers, boards, and commissions, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to just say that the bicentennial ceremonies and stuff for the bicentennial is coming along. We have a meeting tomorrow night, so I believe that's at 7 o'clock. So that'll help finalize some more of the of what's happening. But all of the things that we know of, and again, once again, that is the week of July 22nd through the 29th, and most of it is down here at Columbia Woods Park. So it's moving forward rather well.
Anything else?
No, that's all I got right now. Thanks.
Mr. Fowler?
We've been contacted by Republic Services. I sent an email to all of you yesterday, I believe, last night. There are issues with the recycling.
20th,
Um,
August 20th.
The short of it is that the consumer of recycled goods has altered the type of recycled goods they wish to receive. Because we were, not us, because those that receive the recycled goods were not as efficient in altering their collection as they were for selling, they resulted in a backup at the recycling. Now they're asking that we no longer recycle glass, only plastics 1 and 2, newspapers, cardboard. But they want them to be clean. There's a cleanliness factor. I will start to put out some information on that. It brought forth another question, and Director Markey and I have discussed this. The contractor has asked for an increase in the bill. Mr. Markey and I discussed that our feeling is that if the current provider feels that they are not able to provide the service at the current rate, that we mutually agree to terminate the contract and pursue other alternatives. So I send you that information. We have a little bit of time to kind of go through it, but I want you to, I think I know what council would be okay with doing, but I don't want to make that decision without having input from you that you all think the same as maybe the director and I.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I did read all that information. It was a little bit confusing. And you're saying they will no longer take glass, or
They're asking that we no longer recycle glass. Yes.
yeah, they'll take it in the trash, but they won't
Right,
take
correct.
it in.
They'll take it in the
They
trash.
don't want it going in a recycle bin.
Correct.
All they want are this number 1 and 2 plastics.
Yes.
And newspapers and cardboard, and everything has to be clean, which I think the paperwork had already been, you couldn't have food items like in it or anything, had to be cleaned up. Am I wrong in when I say they actually make money on recycling? Don't they actually go somewhere and they have their own recycling plant?
I think that's the issue, is it's not as profitable as it used to be, particularly with the paperboard, once China stopped accepting it, the paperboard. And that's not just this service providers. A lot of people are having issues. As Mr. Fowler knows, I do some work for the Solid Waste Authority, which tries to spearhead recycling within Summit County. And this has been an issue they've had in their radar for about a year, knowing that it's coming down the line and could impact community-wide recycling, which is what they were trying to promote.
And also due to the fact that the foreign countries are saying we don't want any more of your stuff.
Yeah, so I think it's two things. One is Amazon's flooded the entire market with a ton of cardboard, and two is China is not accepting the cardboard. So it's created the storm of leftover recyclable waste with nowhere to go.
But I just wanted to bring forward that they've asked us for an increase. The director and I feel strongly that if the provider is not able to provide that service at the cost per the bid due to market fluctuations, that we would recommend termination of the contract and then pursuing an alternative method.
Do you have any ideas about this alternative method? You don't have to state them.
No,
I'll get them from you later.
There's a couple things we could do. Just the director and I have discussed. We could go to a multi-hauler system where they would be permitted by the city, meaning the permit, they would pay us an X amount of money. That money we could use to go towards funding some road improvements. Things like that. I don't know that we've decided what we want to do, but, the mayor, Justin, and I have had this discussion where what do we do? This was something that just came on us about a week ago, and we're trying to navigate this situation. So to be candid, without really having full review of all the administrative,
Now, you just discovered this the 6th when you met with her?
yes. And Justin's telling me it's been going on for a year.
Yeah.
I guess why do you wait till the 6th to tell us? But that's okay. I mean,
Well, and our job as city officials is to, encourage the recycling, but I'm not sure at a cost. I mean, that was the argument with the last hauler that we had on the little yellow bins, was that we were looking for the rollout containers, and they were going to in for recycling, the rollout for recycling. And what we were getting, the feedback we were getting from the contractor at that time was that he would give us a rollout larger container, but then charge extra money for the bill. And it was like, well, I'm not going to encourage recycling and at the same time pass a cost on to the residents to absorb. So we ended up staying with the yellow container until we switched haulers, and then went with the rollout this time around. But that's kind of where we are, right? And we're right back almost at a full circle.
So what are they going to do if people just put whatever in their recycle can? What are they going to do? Just holler?
Typically, if you do unauthorized waste, they'll send you a notice saying stop doing that, and if you keep doing it, then they'll stop collecting it.
So in other words, they're going to figure out who's doing it or send it to the city, do you mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure they look that closely, but it's just like if you're putting paint cans out by the side of the road with paint in them, they'll keep warning you, and eventually they'll cut you off, tell you no more service.
The thing is, it'll be the recycling part, though. So
I understand.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to discourage recycling, but at that point, where does the line come into play that you just start throwing it into the trash?
Right,
I mean, I'm not being just putting it out on the table.
But for the time being, no more glass. That includes these recyclable bins out here as well.
And we are in the process. Fortunately, this happened now. I know I say that in a different way, but fortunately this happened now because we're in the process of making new signage. So the new signage will articulate this. We had actually already had a proof of the new signage before, but fortunately we had not had the construction started, so printed. So we will be getting new signage here as to what our items. The other thing we take is metal cans, aluminum cans, and
They'll take that.
they will. Yes.
Too bad they ain't getting mine.
So, but I wanted to bring that to your attention and kind of start the message that we're going to, be hopefully.
So just to be clear, it's plastic 1 and 2, paper, and cans.
Yes.
Aluminum.
Cardboard.
And cardboard.
What about the metal cans? Like,
It had soup cans. It did have soup cans. So I'm
Did I see on there that they didn't want cloth either?
yes, I
But
believe
we have simple recycling that'll take the cloth.
Yes, we
Yes.
have, and I guess one of the issues we have with that recycling is the city here. We have a cardboard paper dumpster that we get paid
Right.
by so that's where I use all my cardboard goes in there. I distribute all my cardboard and paper here, so people could still do that. That's still going to be an option. It's just Republic is looking for those 4 items, and when your household in your the tote. Those are the 4 items they're seeking in their tote.
So why don't they just take it to wherever they're dumping the rest of their crap?
I think that's what they're doing, and that's
But they want us to sort through it now and save them the money of whatever sorters they're having to go through. Basically. So they can okay, I got you.
Sounds like it's time to rebid it.
well, I
doesn't it?
just unfortunately, if the provider is not able to provide the service that was bid in the project, I would argue that's what needs to happen.
So am I hearing correctly that they don't have to stick with their contract?
They
Anybody
could,
can
but if they say we could mutually agree to separate, is
And
where I would.
I'm not saying that's out of the question, but if this is a industry-wide problem, is getting out of the contract going to cost our residents more? To me, the point of a contract is to avoid exactly what you're talking about. That's why you sign a contract. Can we, I'm open to all options, but can we hold them to their contract, I guess?
Yeah,
Or
I
not
think-
really?
I mean, the consideration we gave them is we gave them an exclusive license to do residential hauling in the city. And so if they don't want to provide the service for what they bid at, then they lose that exclusive license, and maybe that isn't important to them. To answer, I don't know if there's a way to force them could we take them to court and say you have to provide the service at that rate? Theoretically, but I'm not sure how successful that would be. No, cost time and money. And,
I'm just trying to understand all the options.
yeah.
If I could ask also, with that same contract, is there some sort of out clause, a time period for an out clause for either side?
Not really. Probably the next go around we'll put a little more meat on the bones on the contract. It's pretty bare bones.
Meaning on their side, though, could they just say, hey, we got 60 days, we're giving you notice, we want out?
Yeah,
It
again,
could
that
go
would
the
be,
other way.
I think that's similar to what Mr. Towsley's asking, is how do you force them? If they did do that and say, hey, we can't do it anymore, sorry, we tapping out, how do you force them to provide the service? And
Yeah.
I don't
Could
know
you
if there's a good way
ban
to
that?
answer that. What's that?
Could you, if a company defaults on a contract with the city, can you ban them from performing service within the city going forward?
Well, I think we could have licensed haulers and we could have,
Well, the bid is always the lowest and best.
Yeah.
And I would argue that anybody who voids a contract or doesn't provide a service as bid would not be the best contractor going forward. I mean, regardless of how good of a price we would get.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we have some protections, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that this was posed to us. And administratively, we don't feel it's appropriate to pass that cost off to the customer. Correct. Our residents.
So there's some more, you need to look into this some
Right,
more.
but I just, you know, I'm just saying, hey,
Great.
I'm bringing it to your attention to say, we have an issue. I'm not happy with the fact they want to raise the rates based on a bid. I understand force majeure, et cetera, but this is all part of the market.
By the end of break, we'll have,
Yeah, I'll put together something. I'm supposed to meet with the person from Republic again.
Just one more question. Did I understand correctly, if we put our paper over here, and we also have a bin for the simple recycling over here, we put our stuff over here, then Norton gets a piece of that, correct?
We do. We get paid. Ron gets a check quarterly from the River Valley Paper Company.
Oh, so that's nothing to do with Republic? That's
No,
another
that's not
company
Republic. That's a
altogether.
separate, it's a whole separate deal.
That's the green container.
The green container.
Is River Valley.
River Valley Paper.
Over there.
Yes.
Here, in our
Yeah.
parking lot, yes.
Yeah, and then
like
simple
this.
recycling is for the cloth things.
Yes.
The
And
white,
that's
the
over
white
there.
bin is for cloth and other household goods, according to the
Leather
gentleman.
belts and shoes.
like
and
the schools,
rags.
they have
Yes.
their own paper
Yes.
recycling
Yep.
that they get paid for.
When you're considering the alternatives, Mr. Fowler, you mentioned multiple haulers. I think if everybody remembers why we went to a single hauler to start with, it was to eliminate the traffic, heavy truck traffic on our roads. And in the past week alone, and this hasn't been out in the public as far as I know about what you brought up this evening, but in the past week alone, I've had 4 people call me and complain about certain streets. And I told them, of course, to contact the normal complaint line. And all 4 of them, to the last one, said, I think it's due to when we had multiple haulers in the city. One, for an example, on the street I live on, he said that there was, I think he said at the time, when the road started deteriorating was when they had the oil wells up there, and there were several trucks going up and down there, and we had 2 different trash trucks, and he thinks there might have even been 3 in the one neighborhood. So when you're considering this alternative method, I think that should be put up forefront, because we don't have any money now for roads. And if we start increasing truck traffic like they've done at the C&D landfill, with no return to the city, I don't think that's the way to go.
Anything else, Mr.?
Just one more thing. Some of you noticed that the Perrin started paving last week. They kind of, or actually 2 weeks ago now, Friday, or a week ago Friday. But they will be doing Hametown tomorrow. Should be grinding it tomorrow or Wednesday, and they will be doing Neats pavement tomorrow. So once they get Neats and Hametown we had to do a change order on Reimer because there's a box culvert that's in need of repair. So their Perrin's going to do the change order on that. Understand that's a separate contract. But the summer paving should be wrapping up within the next few weeks.
Did you get my email?
Yes, I was going to tell you, Larry looked at that situation. All the residents in that area, we need to have some attention to those issues. So we're going to attend to all of those at the same time.
So I've heard. And just for the public's information, this is where Perrin paved, and maybe you didn't get an apron coming off the street. Don't feel alone. I didn't either. And that's what we're talking about now, is that will be taken care of, because that's not good for the cars going in and out. It's definitely not good for our brand-new paved roads.
So Larry Mr. Hess and I have been talking about ways to help mitigate that. So he actually looked at it today.
I couldn't understand. Why did they do some and not others on the same street?
Yeah, I was talking to Charlotte. Pleasant did a great job. If it was cement, it went right up to the cement. But there were some that had a little bit more, and some didn't have any.
Well, on my particular road, the one is asphalt or cement, and they done great.
Yeah.
And there's only 3 of us. The next house, it's dirt, gravel driveway, just like mine, but they got an apron, but I got nothing. Just a big ledge.
While you're on the subject of the asphalt, I've traveled Reimer 3 times in the last couple of days, and I noticed that the asphalt that they put down, is there another layer of asphalt going on top of that?
Yes.
Okay,
So there'll be the top layer. That was the intermediate course, and I remember we told them to stop because we didn't have a
Yes, I
contract.
remember.
They shouldn't have never started, but that's okay. Not really, but so. And the other issue is this: without the box culvert being replaced, I don't want the road done until that box culvert's done.
Sure.
And we were negotiating with the county engineer the change order to make that happen. So now that we have that in place as of Friday, they will be replacing the box culvert. And I apologize, Barilli or Bertilli or Bertulli, whoever they are. They're being hired by Perrin to fix the culvert. So that's why I said it should be done by the end of the month.
Because I noticed most of the driveways, not all of them, but most of them had approximately an inch. They were approximately an inch above the roadway. So I assumed that they were going to.
They're coming back with a top course another inch and a half.
Okay, all right.
And do we have Mr. Hess looking at other culverts, box culverts throughout the city, identifying problematic ones? Or can we?
We were doing those on a call basis, but yeah, we should be doing those evaluations. My hope is, just so everyone understands, that administratively, the mayor, Larry, and I are putting together the 2019 paving list. I know you're probably thinking, why are you doing it today? My goal is to have that administratively put together. Then I'll separate it out into wards and ask the ward council people to identify the roads that our street superintendent has said are the worst roads that he wants to fix. And then maybe if the council would prioritize the roads that they find. The idea behind that is so that when we go to budget season, I can tell you, based on an engineer's estimate, how many roads we can do. So my goal is to have that to you when you get back from break.
All right.
So,
When you talk about the box culvert,
yes, ma'am.
do we have to pay extra for that? Or?
Yes, we will have to pay extra. Now, I don't know
That's
how
what
much.
the change order
That's
is.
the change order. Now, again, we're getting a credit because we're giving them the pipe. We have some bigger pipe that we weren't going to use. So we're going to give them the pipe, so we get a reduction. So that's why we don't have the exact amount on the change order.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Messner?
I have nothing, thank you.
And Mr. Markey?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Chief, do you have anything to add at this point?
I've got nothing.
Okay. We have no public hearings this evening. Introduction of new legislation, Ordinance 77, 2018. I'd like to offer that for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to authorize the administrative officer to enter into an agreement with Engineering Associates Incorporated for professional engineering services in connection with the design, construction, and construction observation of the Cleveland-Massillon Road water line and sewer line extensions and declaring an emergency.
This time I move to waive the second and third.
Second.
Motion and second to waive the second and third. The reason for the waiving is just so this project can get underway here. This is the project corner of Cleveland-Massillon 261. This is the engineering piece of it to extend the water line approximately 2,200 feet from the middle school down Cleveland-Massillon north, and also to extend the sewer line from approximately Wadsworth Road 1,000 feet north.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Remember, this is an assessed project, 100%, 5 years, 3% for the property owner.
So no cost
So it's
to the
no
city. Any other comments?
Mr. President, I just wanted to explain that I voted no, adding it to the schedule tonight, simply because I'm just not ready. I wasn't under the knowledge that we were going to vote on this tonight, and I just don't feel prepared. So,
I agree with Mr. Towsley. We were supposed to be looking at this on the 25th. It never came, or actually even, on the 25th. It never came forward then. Now all of a sudden we've got it in front of us and we want to waive second and third, and I just feel like, no, did not get to look at this enough. I have other questions I'd like to have answered. No, I have no problem with putting the sewer and water there. And if I understood correctly, this assessment is only for 5 years. They have to repay it within 5 years, correct?
Yes.
Where does it say that at?
This is just for the engineering.
This is for the engineering. This has
Right,
nothing,
well-
the assessment petition that Mr. Markey put together is the means by which that would be paid back.
Right, and that's in there. It says 5 years there. I thought we were going to determine that later. But this is the fact that we're going to have to fork out this $75,000. Well, I want to know, where does it say that we're getting the money back in 5 years? Is it in here and I've just missed it?
It does not say that in the ordinance you have before you.
So we don't have anything that says that.
The petitions, I can't remember the petitions.
No, the
are
petitions
signed.
just said it
Say
would be, I don't think there was any time limit
They
in that
waived all
either.
their,
Right.
they waived
And-
all their rights.
And where are the signed petitions that we weren't supposed to be moving on anything until you had the signed petitions? Only petitions I saw were the ones that came up in front of me with, and this is going with the only one that I saw had a signature was actually the second petition for Clark Mill Road, and that was from the engineering associates for that one. But I have a real
Engineering
issue
Associates
with
has
us.
nothing to do with Clark Mill. So I don't
Huh?
know. Engineering Associates had nothing to do with Clark Mill. So I have no idea how you're putting Engineering Associates with Clark Mill.
Well, okay, that's for I did see engineering, okay, not Clark Mill, but I haven't seen any petitions, you're right, any petitions with the signatures on it that you said you needed to do, but you needed to get those signed and okayed before we went forward with any legislation. Never saw anything on that. I want to see that, which is another reason why I don't want to move and waive any of this. And I want something in front of us that says the $75,000 will be paid back within 5 years, which is actually what I had written down in my notes. I would be willing to go along with an assessment for that, as long as we're not setting a precedent somewhere. And I'll forewarn you, I feel the same way about Clark Mill, only more so. I'm not going to agree to any assessment on that either. I don't think we should. I mean, people's going to stand, I don't mind helping businesses, and I'd asked who the developer was. We were supposed to have 2 signatures, Mr. Meadens and a developer, although I didn't see that on the petition anywhere. Who is a developer for this that would be getting held? The developer is who I'm assuming is who bought the property that hadn't transferred the last time we talked about it on the 18th. There's a lot of questions going forward with this that I'm not at all comfortable with moving forward, let alone the fact I asked you if we bid it. This is $75,000 we're going to spend, regardless of whether we're getting the money back or not. Our charter clearly says anything over 25 must go for a bid, and nobody
Excuse
even
me, are you
asked us.
saying, just so I'm clear, Councilwoman Whipke, are you saying we should have bid engineering services?
We have in the past, or we've given you permission to go forward and look at them.
It is a
If you wanna
violation,
know-
excuse me, it's a violation of the Ohio Revised Code to bid engineering services.
Or you have come to us, the administration has, and has asked permission to pursue looking at approaching engineers to get prices on it. You can look under, let's see, 92-2010 ordinance. It was a proposal for getting engineering for Nash Heights. We've got 41-2011, that's where it was accepted. 28-2012 advertised for bids for the Norton Water Line, and that was for a design build. I'm just, like I said, I asked about the bids. You didn't say anything about it being illegal to go out for bids on an engineering project when I asked about it.
Maybe because I'm sorry I didn't understand maybe what you're asking for in
Yeah,
bids.
if you
We
can
did an
explain
RFQ process at the
Right.
beginning of the year for the State Route 261 project. Engineering Associates was selected based on the RFQ for the 261 project. The water line that's on this project was part of the 261 project.
The water line on 261. Okay. Right. For some reason, you said Wooster Road. Didn't you? Did I just hear Wooster Road? That's what I heard. Okay. It was just all 261.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
So I'm assuming there's a couple steps here to this process. So this first step is that we hire the engineers and they do the engineering, and then I would assume that you come back with legislation that sets the assessment and the 5-year time period and the 3% interest and all of those things. Is that correct or is that not correct, Mr. Markey? Are we going to get other legislation after this?
The legislation would be this legislation. The additional legislation would be assessing legislation. So to enter into the contract, it would just be this.
Right.
In order to assess assessments, if that need be, it would be future legislation.
So that would be another piece of legislation where we say it has to be paid back in 5 years, 3%, all of those things
It would
would
set
be.
the assessments
would
based
set
on
the
the
assessment.
based on the signed petitions.
Okay. So it is kind of a two-step process here.
Yeah. Well, again, the assessments are only a backup in the event that everything goes wrong, right?
Explain that a little bit more to me.
Mr. Fowler?
The assessment process is strictly to cover the city should the developer back out, right? So we go through with the process, we get it engineered, and then the developer says, okay, well, you know what, I own this 5 parcels of land, but I can't afford, my financing goes through or whatever, it doesn't fall through. This is to cover us in the future should he not develop the land.
So the only reason I can see that we would need to be covered would be because there's some type of a breach of contract. So in other words, he's contractually bound to repay us the $75,000. However, if he doesn't, we have this assessment legislation as a backup, in which case we can throw a lien against the property and get our $75,000 back if we need to do that.
And the intention would be to bring a development. This is what I was trying to get to, Mr. Fowler. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but the intention would be to come back to council with the development agreement in the future that would sort of lay out what you just talked about, which
Right.
is the expectations of the city as to the development.
I
getting
guess-
reimbursed for
right.
those plans. And
I guess what I just want to make sure of, very crystal clear, is that council gets a second bite at this apple, that this is going to come back to us and we're going to approve some type of a development agreement along with that there's going to be this assessment, because it's not in here.
That's
I mean,
correct.
in fairness, it's not in here. I mean, we could do it here. We could do it here, I'm quite sure, or we could do it later. I just want to make sure if we don't do it here, we're going to get a second bite at the apple
so
to
the
do it
question
later.
that you're asking is second bite of the apple, but I guess my follow-up question is, are you expecting that before the $75,000 is spent or after?
Before.
Before. So that's, Mr. Fowler, is that the timing that we had anticipated?
Why would we want to spend $75,000 and then wait and see if they're okay with paying us back within 5 years?
Well, they don't have
Is the intention
any
to come back with a
choice.
development agreement before the design work is done? Or a contract is signed for the design work?
No. The intention was to start the design because we have a tight time frame.
Right.
But even if we spend the money,
Yep.
I mean, it's
Come
up-
back and assess.
It's entirely up to us to assess when we want to assess,
Correct.
and they don't really have a whole lot of choice.
That's correct.
We assess the project.
Correct. And they've
the way it
waived their
works.
right. They have sent a signed petition, and I apologize, I sent it to the mayor and Mr. Pelot.
Okay.
I apologize in Mr. Markey.
Okay, it just did get distributed, but
Yes,
that's
and I apologize.
Yeah, so to your point, yes, you still have the right. What I was talking about is the additional agreements, the additional layers of the onion, that's coming later. But in any event, if nothing else happens, you still can assess. no
well,
matter what.
and that's what I want to make sure of, because to be comfortable to move on this tonight, I need to know in my own mind that we can come back later and say we're going to assess this.
In other words, recover the cost.
Absolutely.
Of
Yeah.
what we've spent.
Yeah, because
So
we're
it's
not paying
protecting-
for it.
No,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
right?
saying. That's
Right.
the whole idea, is
Absolutely.
to
Right,
recover
Mayor.
the cost
Exactly
of what
right.
was spent.
Yep. Exactly right.
Could I just interject something here? It says in about the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth whereas is down in the contract, in the ordinance, it states, whereas should the project not go forward, the full cost of engineering will be assessed to the petitioner. It
Well,
does say that.
and that's okay, except that the whereas clauses I don't think are binding.
Right.
So, it's everything after the now thereto be it ordained that's binding. So that's fine that it says that, but that's
Yeah,
not
the whereas
really,
is just more so people
Right.
keep track of it. The petitions, we'll make sure. They should be on file.
Right.
They are. They were signed June 19th.
Scott, did you get those?
I don't. As I mentioned earlier, had some computer issues and
Okay.
phone issues, so I have not seen that.
So the signed petitions drive the whole thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would not have brought it forward without the signed petitions, not after. And it was 100%. So after our last discussion.
You have them,
Do you
Carrie?
have that where
No,
you
I
can
don't, I've never
forward it?
received anything.
I just sent it.
Carrie and
June
Carrie,
19th.
Print those out.
Okay.
And
Right now?
Yes, please.
And
Take a
it
recess.
is
We're going to take a couple-minute recess. We'll let Carrie
Why
go
don't we
ahead
just
and
to the
print
next-
these out.
Why don't we go to the next item, and I guess they'll give you time to print it out. Yeah.
Yes.
Because,
Come to the mic, please.
well,
Just one quick question. That petition, am I the only person on
No.
it, or did, okay,
No,
Tom
both,
did?
Both
of us
parties
on
are
it.
signed. Yep. That's
all
why
I
I
need
wouldn't
to
have
know.
brought it forward.
Outstanding.
And that's why so just so you understand, the property is not transferred yet.
right.
So I had both parties, Thomas somebody, and Mr. Meaden have both signed that petition because it's in the midst of the transfer. Once that property is transferred, then it would be the full responsibility of Mr. Thomas. Yes. So
I would suggest we take a quick recess only because if we move on to something else, then our clerk's not here to
Yeah,
take minutes.
I was thinking
so.
about that.
All right, we'll take a couple-minute recess, and then we'll reconvene.
I sent it.
What's that? Yeah, exactly.
Thomas Lerner.
Doing the right thing, yeah. Not spending money that's unrecoverable.
Hot date.
No adjustments. If not for all the attorneys, we'd have been out of here a long time ago. But it's all that legal mumbo jumbo.
It's never the legal mumbo jumbo.
It's not?
It's all personnel.
Really?
And do you have a copy of this? And because obviously they're going to, you can come up to the next section. It'll make it that much.
Hey, you look good on TV today.
No, I didn't. Look at the tangerine.
Channel 5.
You were real orange. You were real orange. Your skin color is very
You did a great job, man. You did a great job.
I'm just trying to direct it to your shirt was right in your face.
Hey, that was the lead story.
I know. I get a text from a friend of mine.
That was the lead story. Yeah.
So my guy says, fine, I don't.
It's just, you heard the lawyer here. He would know, man. And don't stand up in court.
So I can just eliminate
You can wear as many as you want.
I'll be here for Buck to talk about tobacco 21.
See this side or this side? I know it's on both anyhow.
Driving into work.
Dodge is a Jed's area, and that's Clark Mill Road.
Where's the development going on this side?
It's going on that side.
At least part of it.
Yeah. So anybody putting a line down through there? Really, we could. At least.
Right.
From to begin with. So we figured.
Because Spartans and mulch makers.
I'm glad two people agree here about something.
I wasn't concerned about it. We're not going to shaft it because that would be bad.
Yeah.
We determine.
Yeah.
Now they're you know that as of right now.
Yeah.
These aren't being paid for.
No, I know.
That's why I need to control the process because if I don't see what I did this way.
I agree. I don't have any problem. Never have.
Even if there's not anything.
Get me to say
Thank
no.
you.
Especially
Is this the only one, or is this both of them?
especially extension of
No, this is just this one.
This is just everyone does.
Thanks, Gary.
Who's? Okay. Where's Mr. Meaden's signature? That's it?
Mike's. And then Thomas is underneath that.
Oh, okay. You could make a good doctor. So are you telling me that this guy Lehner is the, he's the developer?
Now you got that chance.
We're just saying attorney.
No, that's what he's saying.
Okay, right, doesn't say attorney.
I know. Okay.
Justin told me not to. I'll look.
You guys good? And now reconvene the July 9th, 2018 council meeting. We now have a copy of the petition in front of us with both Michael Meaden's signature and Thomas Leaner.
Mr. President, I'll note that the petition itself indicates that the petitioner be assessed 100% of the cost and waives any rights under revised code regarding any other assessments. So it looks like there's no question that it's going to be assessed 100%. Also, it sounds like we're going to have legislation coming forward later to authorize those assessments at 100% and no longer than 5 years at 3% interest, is my understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question then. When are we going to spend the money? When will we be spending our money? Can anybody tell me that?
Probably shortly after
Shortly yeah.
the engineering's done, once they submit it to us.
And is this being paid out of the water and sewer fund? What is it? I can't keep it.
107. 127, which is just the water
127.
fund.
The water fund. Okay. All right.
That's going to pay for both the sewer and the water line design? That's what both of these are. This is what this is for, isn't it? Both of them, or is this just for the water?
51,000. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
51,000 is for the water line design. 24,000 for the sewer line design.
And both of those can be paid out of
127 and
127, 128.
both of them. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
We'd split them up.
Thank you.
The 24 will go to 128.
Right. Okay.
Does it say on this petition, Mr. Kern, you mentioned 5 years, 3%, or is that
I did
just
not.
the intention going forward?
There is
Yeah,
no
I did
time.
not see that on the petition,
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah,
Towsley.
Mr. Towsley, the way the petitions work is, Mr. Fowler may have mentioned it before, is they waive all rights to every form of process that you could have for a petition, for an assessment. So theoretically, you could assess this back in 1 year. I think the handshake agreement is if the city is assessing, it would be at 5 years and 3%.
Okay, so that's something
So you have the
technically for us to determine.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And I think on the petition that is all of those waivers are included under 1, 2, 3, 4. Waives all of those.
Yeah, and it's typically there's 3 pieces of legislation for an assessment. You're allowed to do in one. There's limits on how much you can assess the property. Those are waived. Everything that the revised code limits you has now been waived with respect to this property or these properties.
All right.
So there's nothing stopping us through the state that we can say you've got 5 years and that's it, in other words.
Right. Like I said, if you wanted to do 1 year, theoretically, you could charge back in 1 year. The agreement would be, the understanding with the developers is 5 years and at the 3% rate.
And the reason for that is because they have specifically waived all of those provisions under the Ohio Revised
Correct.
Code.
Correct.
For my understanding, this covers engineering. Is there something separate for the actual construction, or is this engineering and construction?
The petition is for the entire cost of the improvement, which includes engineering, construction, observation, and or bid No, the entire project.
Okay, thank you.
So what is the 75,000 actually covering? All of it?
The engineering portion of the design, construction administration, project observation. That's where that 75,000.
All right, so
So there will be more costs later.
Well, you still have to bid,
Right.
And we can't. I mean, I think to your question,
Right.
we can't tell the developer how much it's going to be costing him because we have to design it.
Right.
Justin, I'll just be clear. Justin and I, and the mayor, and Ron, we've had discussions on how to proceed with this. I have a concern with allowing the developer to select an engineer and telling us what's going to go there. We have no control over. We have limited control. With this, I can have a design control that I need to accomplish some other objectives that we have, that some of the other council people have. And by having the control, by us having the contract, we can say, I want that water line on this side. I want here. I want it here. And I want to.
This particular engineer, you've had experience with before?
Yes.
And you're comfortable with this
Yes.
person? Or this
We did an
company?
RFQ, and there were 3 submittals. EDG, GDP, GPP. I always get those 3 letters mixed up. I know it's those 3 letters, just not sure how they go in order. And then Engineering Associates.
Right.
And when we did the 261 water line selection process, they were selected to do 260. They were selected to do the water side. I didn't select them to do the sewer, but if I split the contract off, both engineers would have to survey. So it would be twice the cost for the survey work. So rather than go through that process for the sewer, I just said, you're going to be doing the survey work. It's 900 and 1,000 feet of sewer line, so just do the sewer. And you're going to incorporate that in your water design.
but on the 261 thing, we were looking to get help on doing that.
Right.
It's
But
not coming all out of our pocket.
Right, but I had to select an engineer so that they could put together cost estimates. They had to do a preliminary engineering report. There were certain things that had to go into the application. That they did a lot of work on the front end for us. So we had to have an engineer selected to proceed.
Right, I understand, in order to get points, in order to be able to get all the help and blah, blah, blah for the Akron-Wadsworth Road water line. What? Now I've kind of lost my train of thought. You mean GPD was not, after all the work they've done for, isn't that the one that we've hired time and again to do many things? We couldn't, they
No,
couldn't do
EDG,
better.
EDG, environmental design.
We've used both firms.
Yeah, we've used both.
We've used both firms.
Yeah, okay. I just found it.
GPD is who we have for Cleveland Massillon. Well, I
Yeah.
don't want to mix apples and oranges, but that's who's doing Cleveland
And
Massillon.
EDG did Nash.
EDG did Nash Heights for us. Sewer.
And GPD did Silver Springs Road, and yeah, I mean, it's just.
That's why I thought they would have been over backwards to try and get some. Okay, now the 75,000 is going forward. We now all understand there's going to be more money to be spent to do the actual construction. Am I right on this?
Right, yes.
Where's that coming from?
That would come back to council, right?
For us to pay for that too?
No. If there was to be any money spent by the city, it would come back to council, and then you'd have a determination to make on whether you want to proceed with the improvement. This is just the design aspect of it.
Okay, now spell it out. 75,000
If you want to spend
design.
more money, you got to have a contract that's approved by council. So that second bite at the apple, I mean, that's another second bite of the apple. We're just designing. It would have to be bid, and then it would have to be a determination of who's constructing, how's it getting paid for. That's all, I think, to be determined.
Yeah, who would be paying for it? You're going to come back to us and say we need to do another one and then we'll wait to get paid? Or is the developer forking out that money? Now, I was concerned about 75,000 just for designing. How concerned do you think I'm going to be about the next step? And us putting up the money first. Those are just off top of my head. Now I get it. It could possibly be our dollars going out to actually construct it. To begin with, waiting to be paid. Am I right or wrong?
It's an option. I don't know that because we have a couple of projects that are in the balance, so to speak. So I'm optimistic that the two projects jointly will help fund this project.
Any other questions? We had a motion and a second to waive second and third on ordinance 77, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
I'm sorry, no, I'm not ready yet.
Ms. Whipke?
No.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 77, 2018.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
No.
Ms. Whipke?
No.
Next item, ordinance 79, 2018. I'd like to offer it for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to amend the appropriations for the current expenses of the City of Norton for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, authorizing transfers from the general fund for calendar year 2018 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. At this time, I move to waive the second and third readings on ordinance 79, 2018.
I'll second.
And as I stated earlier, this is just transferring money. It's already budgeted, $600,000 into the road fund and $1,260 into the historical house fund. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
This time I move to adopt ordinance 79, 2018.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Introduction of prior legislation, ordinance 76, 2018 for its second read. Mr. McGlone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 76, 2018 for second reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo for the police department at a cost not to exceed $26,888 and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend ordinance, the third reading for ordinance 76, 2018.
I'll second.
The reason being, we usually go three readings on this. We do have a break, and this was budgeted for this, so I'd like to move this legislation on.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
I move to adopt ordinance 76, 2018.
I'll second.
Motion second to adopt ordinance 76, 2018. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes. Next item on the agenda this evening, ordinance 78, 2018 for its second reading. Mr. Kernan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 78, 2018 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance tentatively approving the preliminary plat of the major subdivision proposed by JLP Development, LLC, Mr. and Mrs. Dodd, and Fisher Sand and Gravel Corporation on Clark Mill Road, parcel numbers 4607615, 4607315, and 4607039.
So a couple questions before I take any further action. We have 60 days, correct?
Yes.
This was submitted to us, refresh my memory,
The 18th.
the 18th of June. So the 18th of August, would be when we'd have to take action, and I don't think we'll be back before then.
20th?
20th. So if we don't do anything, it goes into effect.
Yep.
So just laying that out there. Now, this is a preliminary plat.
Yep.
Which means it comes back to us again, correct? For final approval?
I don't think you do a final. I don't think council does the final approval on the plat.
Okay.
It's what I'll say about preliminary plats is there's very limited opportunities for council to object.
Right.
If it's correctly zoned, they follow the design standards. It's been approved. There's very little options.
Okay.
I know there's sometimes people don't like the development, or it may be perceived as causing a harm to the community. But that's usually not a good reason for a council to object to something.
Right.
So I'll just throw that out there.
So, and I guess that kind of is a good segue into what I was going to say. There's very few things that we can say to someone who owns property, who wishes to develop it within the law. We can't just say, you know, we don't really like your idea, so you can't develop.
I think if you would find that they didn't follow the ordinances, that they didn't meet the design standards, that the planning commission made a mistake,
Right.
then there's probably a good reason to object.
And short of any of those things,
You're inviting a lawsuit for improper, denying the use of the property, essentially.
right, okay.
Yeah.
So, and I will say this. I totally get when people have empty property behind them and they want to see it stay woods. I get that. I understand that. I understand that we don't like to see things change sometimes. I understand green space. I love green space. I think green space is a great thing. The problem is that this property is zoned a particular way. This person has bought it, and they have a right to develop it. Now, talking about the speedway and the noise and things like that. Not you, I'm looking behind you. I shouldn't be looking at anyone in particular, but and I apologize. I'm not singling you out because I know that there are other people out there that have the same concerns, and I totally get it. So let me just put it this way. There's a rock concert up at the Q. You have a choice as to whether or not you want to go and subject yourself to that noise or not. Here, you have a choice whether you want to buy a house in that allotment or not. And I guess the market forces will drive whether or not this developer can sell those properties or not, and how much they can sell them for. So I understand what you're saying, and I get it. I totally get it. From what I can see, there's not a lot here that we can say no to this plat for. That's my own opinion. So, before I make a motion to waive second and third, are there any other comments?
I do. I have to agree with Mr. Kernan. Legally, there's few areas that we have to say, no, we don't want to do this and we're not going to do it. We really can't do that. That happens sometimes. Am I happy about it, the way this has come about? No. Did you ever find out about the Jed's area on Clark Mill? I brought the map with me tonight.
Yeah, the Jed's area is really about commercial, not residential, but I can.
Well, if they're working there, I mean, like I said, Spartans in
I don't
there.
think that's what they have in mind.
Okay. Also about Mrs. Woodruff had stated she did not receive a notice to come to the Planning Commission until the day after the meeting. And that was with everybody over there. I'm thinking that's probably correct. And I went through the charter and I looked at things and I can't find anything to help you on that. Don't like it. What's the point of sending people a letter to say if you have an issue, come complain, and then they don't hear about it till after the fact. And I still want my overlay for the houses and the sewer lines.
Okay, I can't produce that, so.
No,
We can't get it.
I got that part.
Okay.
We understand.
Just so you know, and I've already forewarned you, I'm not going to be good about paying $12,000 out for this either. As a matter of fact, they can afford to build houses. They can afford to put up their own $12,000.
And I have one thing. I will say it's not a great spot for an allotment because of that Bourbon Speedway. I think it's going to be some problems, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I agree with Charlotte about the planning commission. I mean, normally we do pass what they say, but those people did not have their word on it. But the one thing on the design construction, Robert, I know we go by standards, but I know on new allotments now, with Mount Vernon and a lot of the others, a lot of that water's been going onto the roadways from the houses. I don't know, are those connected into the sewers now, or are they still going to spill out to the streets?
In storm sewers.
The storm sewers,
Sanitary.
'cause I know-
We can't go in sanitary, but storm.
I know on newer allotments they do, and I know that's been causing a problem with a lot of our streets because that ice forms and it ends up breaking up our roads.
Yeah,
I don't. Would you check into that?
Well,
Because I think that's something we should look at. Why? Because these people's sump pumps run all day long, and the gutters in the wintertime that just forms that ice all over that road.
really should be run into the storm sewer.
Yeah, usually new ones do, but could you just check on that?
Yeah, and one thing I'll say is we intend to have the developer hire, and we're going to enter into a contract with an engineering firm to oversee the construction of the public utilities. The engineer would be paid by us, reimbursed by the developer. It's part of a contract that we have, as part of the development, they have to do that. So,
Which that development contract I would assume, will come back through council, or not?
more than likely, I would say yes.
Okay.
Again, it would be over the 10,000 threshold, and anything over 10 would have to come to council.
I think it's over 15. Over 10, it has to go to Border Control.
I think 10 is Board of Control and Council initially.
Okay. All right, so it looks like it'll come back through, so.
But again, I just want to give, the one issue I have seen is that some of the construction of the roads and infrastructure, should this development go forward, needs to have someone with the city's interest overseeing the installation of these public improvements to make sure that they are within our standards.
Yep, absolutely.
I agree.
Yep.
Could I just ask, when this project or any other project is developed and storm sewers are installed, who owns and maintains the storm sewers? Who? Well, there's been some controversy here in the recent past about that, and I'd still like to have an answer on that as to who owns what. I've been told by 3 or 4 different people 3 or 4 different things, and I'd like to know in this particular development, since it's a fairly large one and it's not there yet, when we have the storm sewers installed and a big black dog goes down one of the storm sewers and plugs it up, who gets the little devil out of there? City?
The answer to that question is very complex. With this case, I can answer how I think it's going to. I don't know that determination's been made. My understanding is there's consideration for a homeowners association. That homeowners association would then be responsible for the operation, maintenance, et cetera, because they're going to handle snow plowing, grass cutting, et cetera. That would be my intention. The more that other people are paying for, the better off we are. And I understand your concern. Again, if we are mitigating situations on private property, and that's because there's a public safety or a public emergency, we have the ability, I would defer to the law director, to assess all those property owners for us mitigating something that substantially impacts all residents. And I'll know that totally answers your question, but my understanding that this is going for a homeowners association, they're going to be responsible for handling those activities.
I just wanted to make certain that 20 years from now, somebody like myself doesn't say, well, why didn't they make certain that this was taken care of? Right. As we know, we have some problems with storm sewers. And ownership is in dispute.
I believe that you and I have had some discussions on a various one in particular.
And I also agree with Mrs. Woodruff, especially with the Speedway. There was an incident out in Wadsworth several years ago where some developers built some houses and they happened to be next to some chicken farms. Well, if anybody has been anywhere in the area of a chicken farm, you've smelled it. Well, it ultimately went to court, and the judge basically said, chicken farm was here. Sorry. I hope that people do their homework. They know that it's the Speedway's right there. I understand the backyard issue as well. This is going to come right down by my backyard, not quite to it, but pretty close. So I understand that. We went through it several years ago with a section, or with Stonewick. Regardless of what a developer tells you, unless it's written in the contract that that land's not going to be developed, if you don't own it, as long as they're within the legal parameters that are set, there's not much we can do about it, as sad as it may be.
Mr. President, unless anybody has anything else, I'm going to make a motion to waive the third reading of Ordinance 78, 2018.
I did have a couple questions, real quick. Just, okay. You said that before that we already had easements granted for that sewer line to get over to Barber Road. Whose property was those on? Can you tell me? I mean, this is something, but if you can tell me later if you don't have it now.
No, it's city property.
It's city
The
property.
Mungo
The Mungo
property.
property.
Yes.
You mean the one that I asked about, if it was going to be able to serve the Mungo property? Okay.
Well, the question is, well, I don't know the line. Your question was, will the line that's going through be able to be serving the Mungo property? And I don't think we had an answer to that, but the line is going through the Mungo property.
Okay,
definitely.
that's what I kind of.
That's a force main.
Right.
The force main is going through Mungo.
Right.
It's
So it's
going
not a
through
service
who?
line.
The force
I
main.
don't want. I think it's a force main. That's which wouldn't be you wouldn't be able to tap in, but there'll be manholes that we should be able to facilitate.
Along the Mungo property?
No, at Clarkville.
Okay.
On Clarkville.
Did we, and I guess the lateral thing will come in later. And the other question I'd had, are they going to be building more houses, or is this basically taking up those 3 parcels with what they presented? Which is why I think we was wanting to see the overlay of the houses. And again, at this point, it doesn't make much difference. It's going for a
To
vote.
be able to add more to the,
Yeah, put more houses in on this. Are they looking to do that? Is it able there?
No, those properties are maxed out.
Yeah, this is
Because
Go ahead.
according to our design standards, you're required a certain amount of green space.
Yeah.
I want to say it's 30%, but please don't quote me on the number. But there are 3 areas of green space in this project to meet that design standard.
So there will be no more houses, this, whatever they get, this 100 to 100 in
On these 3 properties.
on these parcels.
On these parcels.
At the moment, I don't think they own anything else.
Right,
going on the
right,
street.
right.
And again, this is a preliminary plat, so this shows 108. So I mean, it can fluctuate a few here or there.
And I'll be candid, I've asked for less because I have an interest in one parcel for the city. So I'm trying to get them to reconfigure the parcel layout so that we can get one for the city. So this is just a preliminary plat, and we're trying to identify the parcel for access for our emergency personnel.
All right. Any other questions, Ms. Swipke?
Nope, I'm done.
We have a motion to waive. I'll second. Motion and second to waive the third reading. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McGlone?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
I move to adopt Ordinance 78, 2018.
And I'll second that as well. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McGlone?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, ordinance 71, 2018 for its third reading. Mr. McGlone.
I offer ordinance 71, 2018 for its third reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to authorize the administrative officer to enter into an agreement with Blue Line Solutions, LLC, and declaring an emergency.
I move to adopt ordinance 71, 2018.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Motion second. Any discussion?
Yes. I will say that we've all probably heard about this now. It's been in the paper. It's been in the news. It's been everywhere. And we've done our 3 readings. We're not hiding nothing from nobody. It's we're just asking this as a safety feature. We're asking you not to go 10 miles over the speed limit. During the construction time, we will have sign locations. Chief, about 8 of them, I think. I think there's 8 sign locations. And we're just asking not to go 10 miles over the speed limit. It's something that we've been discussing for the last couple of weeks. So that's what this legislation's for.
Mr. President, if I might.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we've talked about this, as Mr. McGlone said, it's been in the paper. Look, this isn't about making money, folks. If this was about making money, we'd have these things set up on 21. We'd have them set up on 261. We'd have them set up on 76. We'd have them set up everywhere. And there wouldn't be any limit as to the time period. We'd just enter into a contract, take the pictures, and send out the civil violations. But that's not what we're doing. The fact of the matter is that what we're trying to do is protect our citizens and our police. I don't want to wake up someday or get an email some afternoon and find out that one of our officers is dead or one of our citizens is dead because someone was speeding down 76, because there was a truck that couldn't stop. It skidded for 113 miles and hit 4 cars. Folks, if you don't want a civil violation, I got a suggestion. Drive the speed limit. It's that simple. Drive the speed limit. Not even 10 over, with all due respect. Drive the speed limit. It's really dangerous. I mean, I don't even drive 76 anymore because you come off of Cleveland-Massillon Road and it's like a cattle chute. I mean, you know,
It is.
you're looking back and you're hoping to God that you can get up to, you know, because some semi's coming behind you going, 70 miles an hour down through. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. And the fact of the matter is we can't put our police officers out there because there's nowhere for them to pull people over safely. There's no way to enforce it. This is the only way. And, if you think that we're doing this just to make money, you're dead wrong, because there was a lot of discussion about this on council. I know people were uncomfortable with it because of the fact that it's cameras and things of that nature. This is going to be for a limited time period at a limited site to try to make people safe. And so that's all it is, plain and simple.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I agree totally. Couldn't say it better than what Mr. Kernan did. It is about safety. We've been over backwards to make sure that this relates to everyone's safety, our service forces, police, everybody, including the people using that district. I expect Barberton is going to go along with doing something similar. I know they were looking at it, so there may be a whole stretch. Perhaps even Wadsworth. And again, if the speed limit is 55 through a construction zone, I don't use that part of 76 either anymore, Mr. Kernan. And I've had a lot of people tell me they've almost had accidents just trying to get off on Barber Road or elsewhere. It's not worth it. I went and I fought against the cameras back when we talked about them before. This is a totally different thing. It's strictly to keep everyone as safe as we can keep them.
Anyone else?
Now, I agree with what's already been stated here. We've made sure that everybody's going to be aware that it's a photo enforcement zone, from The signage, we asked for additional signs. We asked that it be posted on the website with the times, everything else. These are not automated cameras. We've given up to 9, 10 miles an hour where you won't get a ticket, so don't think that if you're going 2 miles an hour over, you're getting a ticket. These type of situations are very effective. I just drove back from Virginia Beach 2 days ago. Going down the highway, all of a sudden I saw the sign, photo enforcement area. Guess what I did? Immediately looked at my speed. If I would have been over, I would have been slowing down. I mean, it's that effective. The number of crashes, Chief, if you could help me, if you have that information, the number of crashes this year is way up.
Right. I did get a report from ODPS in reference to the accidents on 76R stretch. I asked them to do like a 3-year comparison, and I will tell you that from January 1st to I think it was July 1st, we've had 84 accidents just in our stretch. Last year alone in 2017, we had 147. That was a construction year. The year prior, we only had 83. So we're looking at doubling that already.
And that's when the chief came to us. He saw this problem, saw a problem with our officers being out there, safety concerns with them being out there, not to mention, as Mr. Kernan already did, that there's nowhere to pull them over. You can run radar, but there's no place to pull them over. So this is purely about safety. Normally in a construction zone, speeding tickets are doubled. So if it's 165, you're looking at $330. We said, no, that's too much. We want to get our point across, people to slow down. So we said 200. So that's where we set it. So that's all I have.
Anyone else? Okay. I think we have it on the floor right now for
Yes, a
roll
motion
call.
and second to adopt.
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes. Who was the second on that?
Me.
Ms. Whipke?
Next item, ordinance 72, 2018, third reading. Mr. McGlone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 72, 2018 for its third reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance adopting a traffic law photo monitoring program and establishing civil penalties for automated speed violations.
I move to adopt ordinance 72, 2018.
I'll second.
Motion.
This
second
is this
to-
is the second piece of the ordinance. So,
to adopt ordinance 72, 2018. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlone?
yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes. Chief, how soon until this goes into effect, approximately?
I will call them tomorrow. I don't want to do anything until the signs are up. So I'm going to say 2 weeks.
Okay.
But I will contact you guys and let you know when we start it. And I'll
But-
probably post something on our Facebook page.
But for all the folks out there, you can start slowing down now.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Kidding.
It's not too
Yeah,
early
if
to
you've been
slow
stuck
down.
in that center lane when there's been an accident up ahead, it only takes once getting caught in that.
Yep.
Chief, could I ask you what the sign's going to say?
Yeah,
The wording, the actual wording?
It says just what he said, photo enforcement area.
Nothing about the fine.
No.
And 55, right? Going to have the speed limit posted?
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of speed
All
limit
right.
signs now that are posted 55.
Put too much on the sign, they'll be reading the sign, not paying attention to driving. So keep it minimal. I mean,
What'd that
photo enforcement area.
Exactly.
It's out there.
And it's got a picture of a camera.
Yep.
I do have one question, and I tried to call you, but you guys were already gone. When there's not any construction, are the trucks allowed to go 65 too? I mean, the semis, or are they required to be 55? through there.
During
I know
the-
it's-
during the
Yeah, when
construction
there's
zone?
no construction, when it's just a normal highway
No, it's 65.
for the semis as well? Okay.
Next item on tonight's agenda, ordinance 73, 2018, for its third reading. Mr. McGlone.
I offer ordinance 73, 2018, first, third reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance adding Chapter 868 to the codified ordinances of the city to prohibit the sale of cigarettes, other tobacco products, and tobacco product paraphernalia to individuals under the age of 21, authorizing a contract with the Summit County Combined General Health District to implement these provisions through regulations.
I move to adopt ordinance 73, 2018.
I'll second.
Motion and second to adopt ordinance 73, 2018. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm going to say first that Corey really said it all for Summit County Health, and I'm just saying that right now Akron, Mogadore, and Twinsburg and Summit County has this, and other cities like Cleveland and Columbus, and I really do feel that I see other cities following us soon. So I think it's maybe one day it might be the whole state. I think we got 5 or 6 states right now that completely do it. So I'm all for this Tobacco 21 movement.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
We just got done talking about some ordinances just before this about safety and protecting our citizens. And this is an ordinance where we have the opportunity to protect some younger citizens, those kids who might obtain these products and should not. I think the science is clear. If we can prevent one kid, we can prevent one kid from starting smoking and getting cancer and dying, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. It's no different than drinking. If we can, we could lower the drinking limit to 18, but we have decided, and science shows, that if you raise the drinking limit to 21, less people die. I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to protect our citizens. Is this an infringement on freedom? Yeah, it probably is to a degree. I mean, but that's what we weigh all the time. How much are we going to infringe on freedom to protect people? I mean, I suppose a state could say that we're not going to have any speed limits because that's an infringement on freedom. But we've actually said, it is, we think it's probably a good idea to have speed limits so that people don't die. And this is the same thing, and that's why I support this.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'll add my 2 cents. As I've said before, I don't think anybody would argue that the tobacco side of this, that tobacco is dangerous and harmful and so on and so forth. I do believe this is more appropriate a state issue. The state would make that decision, and then we wouldn't have community against community, which is what this is going to cause. But I'd just like to reiterate for myself, this is not about tobacco, this is about government. And is it appropriate for government to discriminate between groups of legal adults and to dictate which groups of legal adults get more rights and which group of legal adults get less rights? That's what the issue is, at least for me. It may not be for everybody else up here, but it is for me. And I cannot support something that would discriminate between groups of what our Constitution, what our state has called legal adults. To discriminate between them, I can't do that.
Anyone else? Mr.
Yes.
Grant?
Yes, thank you. And I'll agree with you on the issue for it should be a state issue, but right now we're just building that momentum, but I'd love to see it in the state. So I will agree with you, it should be statewide. I saw recent statistics that we've had quite an inroad on the effectiveness of smoking cessation. About 14% of our United States population now are considered smokers as of last year, meaning 86% of our population, of our adults, are non-smokers. So some things have worked. And some states have gone and enacted this legislation, which may have affected those numbers already. I think taking a step down that path encourages our good health. And since I represent the city on the Board of Health, I kind of feel that near and dear to my heart. Plus, I've been a pharmacist for about 40 years, and I've seen those devastating effects. We still have, when I say 14%, that represents about 30 million people in the United States that are still considered smokers. So we have some work to do still, and I think this is part of that work.
Anyone else?
I do.
Ms. Whipke?
I agree with Mr. Towsley. This isn't something we should be deciding. It should either be left, make it a statewide thing, put it on the ballot, let the people decide. They should have a voice in this. And I know we're talking statistics. I've read the article today from the Herald. Thank you, Mr. McClone and Carrie. And I'm sorry, I hate statistics. I want to hear numbers like the chief gave us tonight. There was X amount of accidents on 76. That impresses me. Statistics don't. To me, statistics is just a numerical way of portraying what you want to portray. Not to say that they're all wrong, but when I hear that they have to have cold cars brought in other counties or other cities to take care of the people that's OD'd, that tells me there's a lot more people dying from drugs than what there is a cigarette. I don't think we have this right. I don't think we should be doing this. I mean, we have the right, obviously, or this legislation wouldn't be before us. But it shouldn't be our decision. It should be left up to the people more, done on a statewide thing. And if I recall correctly, this is going through as an emergency. Is there emergency language on this?
No.
Don't think
So it could be petitioned, but that's a lot of work to get out there and petition something and get it back in time.
There's no emergency clause.
Yeah.
But, I just don't feel it's something that should be before us. I'll be saying no again.
Any other discussion? I agree. This should have been handled at a state level. To me, it's nothing more than a Band-Aid. Yeah, you can stop it here, but somebody's just going to go to the next city over and buy whatever they want. When they first started talking about this, they talked about it because the 18-year-old, his brain wasn't mature enough and hadn't developed enough to be able to make that decision to smoke or not smoke. However, like I mentioned before, that 18-year-old votes for us, votes for the President of the United States, but he can't make a decision whether or not he wants to smoke a cigarette. If he wants to go buy a house, he can go sign a contract, get a loan, sign a contract for $100 and some thousand, $200 and some thousand. There's no problem there. But when it comes to this, now all of a sudden, there's issues with it. His insurance, or his or hers insurance, obviously, they're going to pay the price throughout life as a smoker. And I was a smoker. And I paid more. I paid extra taxes. They always put the extra taxes on the cigarette and everything else. None of that deters a smoker because of that nicotine level, that addiction. So if you want to make some changes, reduce the amount of nicotine in a cigarette to where it's non-addictive. There you're going to make an impact. This is nothing more than a Band-Aid, and I will not support it.
Well said.
So, just one more thing. Sometimes a Band-Aid can prevent a serious infection.
Roll call, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
No.
Ms. Whipke?
No.
Mr. Pelot?
No. Any unfinished business? Any new business? One item I'd like to see if administration would bring forth some legislation. Engine brakes down the highway through the city of Norton, got to go. I mean, all night long, I mean, people that live along the highway right now have to be going insane.
I thought we already had legislation that you couldn't have Jake brakes or engine brakes.
Well, if we don't, can we check it out? If we do have it, I don't know if there's a way that we can enforce something out there because of the construction, but definitely an issue.
Before you go on, are there signs any place in the city now, Jake, or?
I think the residential neighborhoods, I think there are on Greenwich and Norton Avenue, don't quote me, but I think.
Because there's none in my neighborhood
Okay.
all night long, like he says, I hear them. And now it's worse because there's double trailers coming by all the time.
And if we do have an ordinance in place, maybe we can make sure that the proper signage is out on the highways and in the neighborhoods.
One other thing, Mr. Fowler, did you get a total number yet of people who signed up?
I did. I apologize. I thought I sent that, but I apologize. Mr. Weaver sent me a. As of, this was last Thursday, 241 people had paid their connection fee. That left 41 that have missed the deadline.
41.
41 had not applied. So, I mean, that's, I think, a pretty good number. I mean, we did everything we could. We hung on the doors. We sent letters. We had the sign on the square.
The sign's still up.
The sign is still up to prove. So for anyone to say that we did not make every attempt possible, I want to thank council for their help and trying to get that message out. But we did everything we could, and 41 people. Now I understand there are some exigent circumstances on a couple of these houses, and Barberton is handling those. But for the majority, that's not the case. I mean, one person had passed away, so that's one of the issues.
So total, we had 282 people.
Yes.
On the assessed.
That's what Mr. Weaver is telling me. Well, okay. I'm just going by his email. I'll be glad to send it to everyone.
282.
Yeah.
41 not, 241 did.
And this was as of Thursday. I'll forward this off to you.
As opposed to that ending at, 3 or 4 o'clock on Friday, didn't they actually extend that through Monday then?
They
also?
did.
Pushed it to Monday because of that, yeah.
Because of the, but they didn't let us know that when I told everyone
right.
at council, but they did actually extend that through Monday night because the first fell on Sunday.
Any public service announcements?
No, other than the only thing I just want to remind you, though, that we still have the charter amendment that we would like you guys to think about a little bit on the primary election for Summit County. And like I said, we didn't commit one way or another, but I told her that we would move forward on making a decision in enough time to put it on the ballot if that was something that we were going to do.
All right.
One more thing.
Not to do it, that's okay.
We can add that to the committee of the whole when we come back.
Okay. One more thing, the District Advisory Committee is still looking for an employee of Norton or Barberton or the Health District to be a member of the MAD Mosquito Abatement District Board. So anyone who's an employee of either city or the Health District, if you're interested in that position, please follow the directions posted in the newspaper and other places and apply.
Right. And Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, next committee of the whole is the 13th?
August 20th.
20th is the committee of the whole?
Mm-hmm.
So the next regular council meeting will be the 27th?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That being said, we have no other business before us. Enjoy your summer recess. Meeting adjourned.
What time is it?
And then I just sent it to all
15. You know, it feels like it.
50.
job, Joe.